class. First we chant Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopinath Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswati Vyasam
Tato Jayam Dirayet Nastapraya Sopatresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, which is entitled Prescribed Duties for Mankind. And from here, chapter 12, which is entitled Vritrasura's Glorious Death. And here we have, I'll take a few verses because of the short purports, texts 8, 9, and 10. So you can try to repeat with me. Lokasapala yasyene.
Lokasapala Yasyene.
Lokasapala yasyene.
Lokasapala Yasyene.
Swasanti vivasavashe.
Swasanti Vivashavase.
Swasanti vivasavashe.
Swasanti Vivashavase.
Dvicha iva shicha badha.
Vicha eva Sujavadha.
Dvicha iva shicha badhas. Sakala ihakaranam.
Sakala ihakaranam.
Sakala ihakaranam.
Sakala ihakaranam.
Lokasapala yasyene.
Lokasapala Yasyene.
Shvasanti vivashavashe.
Swasanti Vivashavase.
Vicha iva shicha badhas.
Vicha eva Sujavadha.
Sakala ihakaranam.
Sakala ihakaranam.
6:12:8. Siinä oli kirjamerkki siinä kohdalla.
Lokaha sapalayasye
Lokasapala yasyene.
Shravasanti vivashavase.
Spasanti vivashavashe.
Vija iva shichabadha.
Vicha iva shicha badha.
Sakala ihakaranam.
Sakala ihakaranam.
Lokaha sapalayasye.
Okay, that's enough for one person, one time. So next one.
Lokasapala yasyene.
Lokasapala yasyene.
Swasanti vivasavase.
Swasanti vivashavase.
Dija isati sitcha baddha.
Vicha iva shicha badhas.
Sakala ihakaranam.
Sakala ihakaranam. Word for word translation. Loka,
Loka.
the worlds.
The world.
Sapala,
Sapala.
with their chief deities or controllers.
With their chief deities or controllers.
Yasya,
Yasya.
of whom.
Of whom.
Ime,
Ime.
all these.
All these.
Shvasanti,
Swasanti.
live.
live.
Vivashaha,
Vivashaha,
fully dependent.
fully dependent.
Vashe,
Vashe,
under the control.
under the control.
Dvijaha,
Vijaha,
birds.
birds.
Eva,
Eva,
like.
light.
Shicha,
Shisha,
by a net.
violet.
Badha,
Bhagha,
bound.
cloud.
Saha,
Saha,
that.
that.
Kalaha,
Kalaha,
time factor.
time factor.
Iha,
Iha,
in this.
in this.
Karanam,
Karanam,
the cause.
the cause.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.Z. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All living beings in all planets of this universe, including the presiding deities of all planets, are fully under the control of the Lord. They work like birds caught in a net and cannot move independently. So you can repeat the translation. All living beings
All living beings
in all planets of this universe,
in all planets around the universe,
including the presiding deities
including the presiding deities
of all the planets,
of all the planets,
are fully under the control
are fully under control
of the Lord.
of the Lord.
They work like birds
They work like birds,
caught in a net,
caught in the net,
who cannot move independently.
who cannot move independently.
Purport. The difference between the suras and the asuras is that the suras know that nothing can happen without the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas the asuras cannot understand the supreme will of the Lord. In this fight, Vritrasura is actually the Sura, whereas Indra is Asura. No one can act independently, rather, everyone acts under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, victory and defeat come according to the results of one's karma, and the judgment is given by the Supreme Lord. Karmana daiva netrena. Since we act under the control of the Supreme according to our karma, no one is independent, from Brahma down to the insignificant ant. Whether we are defeated or victorious, the Supreme Lord is always victorious, because everyone acts under his directions. I read two more verses. Verse 9. Ochasaho balam pranam amritam mrityumeva cha tam agyaya jano hetum atmanam manyate jagam. Our sensory prowess, mental power, bodily strength, living force, immortality, and mortality are all subject to the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not knowing this, foolish people think the dull material body is. Then text 10. Yatha darumayi nari, yatha pratramayo mriga, evam bhutani madhavan, isha tantrani vidhibho. O King Indra, as wooden doll that looks like a woman, or as an animal made of grass and leaves, cannot move or dance independently, but depends fully on the person who handles it. All of us dance according to the desire of the Supreme Controller, the Personality of Godhead. No one is independent. Purport. This is confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi 5.142. Ekala Ishvara Krishna Arasa Vabritya Jare Jaiche Nachaya Siddhaiche Paranitya. Lord Krishna is the supreme, alone is the supreme controller, and all others are his servants. They dance as he makes them do so. We are all servants of Krishna. We have no independence. We are dancing according to the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But out of ignorance and illusion, we think that we are independent of the Supreme Will. Therefore, it is said, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govindas Sarvakara Nakaranam. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. Brahma Samhita 5.1. Om Agyanatimanandasya Kinamjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukam Karoti Vachalam Padmanayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramanandamadhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishvaram. So here is Vritrasura speaking. He is still waiting Lord Indra to cast his thunderbolt in order to kill him. And here is an interesting settlement. Vritrasura is seemingly a demon. He is the leader of the demons, and he has come to fight with the demigods led by Lord Indra. Vritrasura is seemingly the Asura, the demon, and Indra is Sura. But here, when the Vritrasura is speaking very high logical philosophy to Indra, when it appears that Vritrasura will be the actual winner also in a spiritual sense, even though in material sense, because he's going to be killed, he seems to be a loser, but in spiritual sense, he's the winner. And Indra, even though he will be victorious in the end in this battle, he will actually be the Asura, or demoniac person. And so we get a little bit of a definition here, what means to be a demon and what means to be a deva. So, like here, it is said that the difference between suras and asuras is that suras know that nothing can happen without the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas asuras cannot understand the supreme will of the Lord. So, here very obviously Vritrasura is speaking high philosophy. He knows the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's very convinced that at the end of his life he's going to go back to Godhead. He's just waiting for this opportunity that he can leave his body, and he's encouraging Indra to kill him. And Indra is, because he's a demigod, he's a chief demigod, he is so much worried about his material opulence, material position. So therefore, he try to keep his materially opulent position, and therefore he's actually spiritually blind here. So there's a saying that not even a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. So we can see things happening in the material world. Sometimes they are pleasant for us, and sometimes they are painful for us. But rest assured that it is the will of the Lord, whatever happens. We can do our best, but we still have our karma to go through, and therefore we may confront some unpleasant things, which is ultimately good for us. So it's a learning experience here. We are supposed to learn that this material world is not a place for a gentleman. This is a temporary place for us. And here it's actually said that it's given an analogy that we are here in a material world like birds caught in a net. So, in other words, we are imprisoned here in the material world. If we think about ourselves in a level of the spirit soul has a very magnificent capacity to do things. Well, in the Vedas, it's described the size of the soul. If you take one piece of hair, you look at the tip of the hair, it's very microscopic to begin with. And you divide that into 100 pieces, and you take one of those pieces, and you still divide that one piece in 100 pieces, and take one of those 100 pieces. And that's the size of a soul, it's our size. And if we are looking at ourselves from that perspective, think that 10,000 of a tip of a hair is on the nose, and you look downwards, you can see that you are in a giant's body compared to that little tiny particle. But still, that little tiny particle is so strong, so powerful that it can keep this body working. The capacity of a soul, like is like we could do amazing things, like even create a planet if we wanted to. That's the power of the soul. But what can we do in this human body? Not much. We have to worry about our eating and sleeping, and then we after eating we feel the call of nature, so we have to evacuate everything. So and there's not much we can do about it. So we are in the prison of the body. We are prisoners in the body, like a bird caught in a net. Um, and we cannot move independently. That's also said. Prabhupada said that we should be as independent as possible and do our own things as much as we can. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada recommended for ISKCON that we should be self-sufficient. We should build farm communities, because in the future it is said that the great asset, the great wealth is with somebody who has like a plot of land that he can cultivate the land and grow things, and the cow, milk the cow, and get the 5 items of the cow or from the cow. And so that is actually considered a real material opulence. And Vedic culture is aiming for that simple living and high thinking. Like Vritrasura here, he is very philosophically averse, he has good philosophical, transcendental, or spiritual intelligence. He is showing in his speaking to Indra that he knows the ultimate science of self and science of God. So in this way, he understands that everything happens by the will of the Lord, and we are just helpless trying to lord over the material nature. Um, but we are here like prisoners. We cannot do very much. Like in verse 9, it is said that all the sensory prowess, mental power, bodily strength, living force, immortality, mortality, they are subject to the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is taking care of these things ultimately. That He is, like we have the saying, Krishna is the supreme controller. Ishvara Parama Krishna. So people are simply dull, thinking themselves to be the cause of their activities, even though it's uh, controlled by the three folds of material nature, three modes of material nature, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Maybe we can discuss a little bit later about these things. Okay? O King Indra, and in the last of these verses, last one of these verses, Vritrasura is saying, King Indra, as a wooden doll that looks like a woman or has an animal made of grass and leaves, cannot move or dance independently, but depends fully on the person who handles it. All of us, according to the desire of the Supreme Controller, the personality of Godhead, no one is independent. Also when Srila Prabhupada, he came to the Western world with Jaladuta boat from Kolkata all the way to Boston and then New York. He made this poem where he said that, I don't know why you have brought me here. If you have brought me here to dance, make me dance, make me dance, make me dance as you like a puppet in your, I'm just like a puppet in your hands. So in the same way, Prabhupada had this same vision of the Supreme Controller. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, Supreme Controller. And people are taking actually so much anxiety, thinking that they are themselves the doer. And that they are the only cause of their fortune in this material world. Like the materialistic people think that whatever good I have gained, that is because of my intelligent action, and whatever bad I'm confronting in this world, it is because of evil action of other people. But actually, this is nothing but us confronting our karma, whether they are good or bad. Like there is a comparison of the analogy of two birds on a tree. One bird is simply eating the fruits of the tree. Some of them are sour and some of them are sweet. And the other bird, meaning the super soul, he's just watching and waiting for that fruit-eating bird to turn to him. So we are tasting our good and bad reactions in this material world, and we are always in an anxiety because we think that we own something, even though it's very obvious that we are born here in a world empty-handed, and we leave this world empty-handed. And everything that we seemingly have, we are just borrowing. We have to give them up. And people are too much uh, being anxious of this proprietorship. And as soon as you think that you own something, you have the anxiety that when are you going to lose it? Because everybody knows that the nature of the material world, because it's temporary, here is only temporary happiness, chapala sukha. So we are in an anxiety when I'm going to lose it, when this going to be broken, or when somebody eats my sweets. in India especially, you leave some piece of sugar on the kitchen table, and very soon there will be herd of ants carrying your sugar away. Uh, uh, but if we become God-centered, Krishna-centered, then we know that Krishna is our best well-wishing friend, and he wants to actually to liberate us from this material entanglement, and he wants us to join him in the spiritual world for wonderful spiritual activities. And therefore, we should have this vision even in this world already. And then, if we understand Krishna as our supreme friend and supreme controller, then we don't have that much of an anxiety anymore. Krishna declares it very clearly in Bhagavad Gita, a very famous verse. Bhaktaranya Kyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Kyatva Mam Shantin Richati. One who knows me fully and knows that I'm the ultimate beneficiary of all the sacrifices and austerities, and I'm the supreme lord of all the planets and all the demigods, and I'm the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities. Then such a person gains peace from material miseries. Mm. Hare Krishna. So, but in this material world, we are just in illusion, ignorance, and illusion. Um, and this world is there's a danger at every step. So those persons who are aware of spiritual realization, aware of existence of the Supreme Lord, and that ultimate goal is to develop the original love for Him, then they are not interested in such a world which has a danger at every step. Eternal spirit soul cannot be happy in a temporary arrangement of this material world. There's an easy method of getting rid of all anxieties. Um, that is by chanting the holy names of the Lord: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And we want to spread this knowledge to all the people, all those which Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada call fools and rascals, who think that they are in some kind of controlling and enjoying position towards this material world. So our program is to try to go and wake them up for this awareness. We can give them prasadam, we can give them transcendental literature, or we can go on Harinam, give them holy name in that way, so they can hear and benefit very much for this kind of activity. So we have great opportunity next Sunday, since we have a Ratha Yatra procession in the center of Helsinki. So people can see the deities of the Lord and hear the holy name, and also taste the nectarian food offered to the Lord, Krishna Prasadam, and we'll have some books also. Hare Krishna. Let's see if there are any questions or comments. I can try to answer.
Prabhu, what was the previous life of Vikrasur that the Prabhuji was mentioning, but he did not go into detail?
Yeah, it's coming on this sixth canto also a little bit later on. Maharaj Pariksit is asking the same kind of question that really makes people wonder. But the story shortly is as follows: that there's a king Chitraketu. He wasn't able to get a son, and that brought him into very great anxiety. Who will run the kingdom after him? So he had many wives. It's sometimes said that he had even more wives than Krishna, but he wasn't able to get a son. Then two sages came and blessed him with a son. So he got a son named Harashashoka, and a person who is um, giving him both pleasure and pain. And then because he got this one child with one of the wives, so the other wives they got very envious, so they poisoned the child, and the child died. Then he was again lamenting very greatly, and then the saintly persons came again, and they actually woke up the child for a moment. So the child spoke them transcendental knowledge of the body. So then Chitraketu finally he was able to understand some higher truth in material life. So he started to the spiritual practices with all his wives. He had a specifically he had a like a flying airplane, and all his wives. He went there throughout the universe and enlightened with spiritual knowledge at that point. And then some point he was passing Kailash mountain where he saw Lord Shiva preaching to some sages. He was giving a class. And he was giving a class in such a way that his wife Parvati was sitting on his lap. And then uh, then Chitraketu saw this, and he became very humorous, just very lightly minded. So he made some humorous comments about Lord Shiva. And the Lord Shiva didn't take any offense. He was just smiling. Then Parvati didn't like this at all. And he cursed Chitraketu to take birth as a demon. They even Lord Shiva spoke some counteracting words to Parvati that you shouldn't have done that. Then Parvati realized her mistake also. But Chitraketu, because he was now very humble, very knowledgeable Vaishnava, he accepted this curse, and then he became Vritrasura. So that's the story in a nutshell. Anything else? Let's see, there's some comment in the chat here. Some waiting comments. All right, nothing else, then we can end here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.